Hey there everyone, welcome back to another episode of Confronting Evil. Tonight, we're back on the road with Seth and Mackenzie, but something has been trailing them from their past. So, get ready to sit back, relax, and buckle those seatbelts. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. It's time for Confronting Evil.
Hey Wallace, don't forget to turn off the computers before turning in tonight. A man spoke from the doorway to the Icarus computer lab. Yeah, don't worry. I'll shut everything down before midnight so the Y2K bug doesn't screw everything up, the man with the glasses replied, not taking his eyes away from the computer screen. The guy in the doorway rolled his eyes before bidding his friend goodnight and heading off down the hall to find the bunk room where everyone else was celebrating the new millennium, leaving Wallace alone staring at the flickering computer screen. I'm just gonna play one more level, then I'll head to bed, the Icarus operative reasoned with himself before booting up the next level of the video game. The game, ARPA, the Digital God, just appeared one day on his assigned computer. He didn't know who installed it. No one was supposed to use this computer beside he and his bunkmates, and none of them were gamers like he was, so none of them had any interest in installing a video game. But here it was, and it was addicting. It started as simple vector graphics, but then quickly evolved with each level he passed, the graphics growing better and better until they were polygonal and fully 3D. Wallace expertly blasted the festering pustules that sprouted from the decayed, greenish-hued torso that hung suspended in space. Flailing tentacles whipped across the screen, and he barely dodged them before firing a missile into the beast's core. It was down to a sliver of health. Victory was in his grasp. Just one more hit. The screen flickered, and his ship exploded. His final life blinked away, and the green words, "Game over," typed across the screen. Wallace sighed with defeat and powered down the computer before moving to power down the others. He made it to the final CPU when he heard a thumping, rattling sound in the small office at the corner of the room. It was dark inside, all aside from the dim glow of a computer screen. Damn it, he whispered to himself before hurrying along into the office to shut down the final computer. Wallace entered the office and reached out to flip the power off, but in doing so, he noticed something strange about the screen of the flickering monitor. It was crystal clear, almost as if there was no glass at all. The agent bent down to peer inside the monitor, where he saw the strange monster from his video game, the disgusting pustules, the decayed skin, the flailing tentacles, all of it. He tilted his head to the side, a bit confused, before one of those tentacles shot out of the opening like a portal into a different world. The tentacle darted out of the monitor and wrapped its slimy girth around his screaming head, drowning out his sound before drawing him inward through the small, rectangular opening. His kicking feet were the last to be pulled into the screen, before finally it flicked off. The screen solid once more, as if he'd never been there at all. Not a sound of his struggle was heard, covered up by the melody of Auld Lang Syne, where his friends and co-workers celebrated just down the hall.
Hey bro, got any leads?
Mackenzie asked from the balcony overhead.
Kids?
Seth asked with a confused pause.
You're up bright and early.
He added, looking up at the girl that had an equally bright smile across her face.
Yeah,
she said with a grin, as she made her way down the stairs to the edge of the room.
You know the bartender from last night? Oh boy.
She continued, almost glowing with joy.
Ew! How drunk were you? That guy was like 100!
Seth took a jab at his sister.
Ew, no. Not that one. The other guy. The one that kind of looked like Jensen Ackles with a beard.
She said, growling at her brother.
I think I'm in love.
She said with a sigh as she sat down in a chair at the table beside him.
Isn't that what you said about the waitress in Tennessee? And the hitchhiker cowboy in Montana? That was an awkward drive afterward. And what about that girl you met at the bar in Oregon?
Seth jokingly questioned.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm polyslamorous.
She said, relaxing in the chair and closing her eyes.
Don't you mean polyamorous?
Seth corrected his sister.
Nope. I meant what I said.
Mackenzie reaffirmed.
Ew!
Seth growled.
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that, and go back to what I found.
Seth said, attempting to put that thought behind him.
I've been thinking about that woman we found in the lower levels.
Seth said, focusing on the book that he pulled out of the bunker library.
Yeah, the angel girl.
Mackenzie added.
She couldn't have actually been an angel, right?
She continued.
I don't know, sis. I looked up the name she gave us, and I gotta say, I think she might be.
Seth answered, sliding the book over so Mackenzie could see it.
Raphael, the beauty of God.
Seth explained, before being interrupted by his sister.
That tracks.
Mackenzie piped in, getting a disgusted look from her brother.
What? She was cute.
She shrugged, before going back to the book.
According to some Abrahamic texts, Raphael commands 72 heavenly legions and wields a burning sword just like other such archangels.
Seth explained.
Archangels? You mean like Michael and Gabriel?
Mackenzie asked.
Yeah. Kind of.
Seth responded, a bit shocked that his sister had any kind of biblical knowledge.
Hey, I know things.
Mackenzie growled at her brother. Seth chuckled and continued reading.
The archangels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, Raziel, Cassiel, Camael, Jophiel, Haniel, Zadkiel, Metatron, and Sandalphon are the commanders of the heavenly legions, the first four being heavenly princes, while the others are their generals. The suffix of El denotes of God, or like God, such as Michael, meaning one who is like God, and Raphael, meaning God has healed, or healer of God. While Metatron, the servant, and Sandalphon, the deliverers of prayers, act as the intermediaries between mortals and God.
Seth explained.
Huh. I didn't know any of this.
He added, quite happy with his discovery.
Why was an archangel waiting for who knows how long, probably decades, in the basement of a top-secret black ops facility for me to come along?
Mackenzie snapped at her brother.
Me, Seth. Me. Why would God or angels or any of that have an interest in me of all people?
Her mind twisted around, trying to make sense of it.
Well, if you read the Bible, Jesus did hang out with some pretty colorful characters.
Seth said with a smile.
Yeah, not making me feel any better.
Mackenzie growled.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Seth joked.
Shut it, Seth.
Mackenzie demanded.
Come on, sis. You're a holy warrior now.
Seth joked.
You gotta set an example. What would Jesus do?
Seth asked with a smile, leaning back to defend himself from his sister.
Well, I hear he wasn't above flipping tables and whipping people.
Mackenzie said sternly, glaring at her brother.
Touche.
Seth said, once again shocked by his sister's biblical knowledge.
We should probably get back to work on finding Eridas.
Mackenzie sighed, moving the subject away from herself.
Yeah, you're right. I'll look online and see if we have any leads.
Seth said, sliding his laptop in front of him and flipping it open.
Damn it, Mackenzie! Were you on my computer again?
Seth growled.
What? No!
Mackenzie defended herself from the accusation.
Well, someone installed something on my desktop, and it wasn't me. And Huck is on a case with Jesse. So that leaves you. What the hell is ARPA, the digital god? It looks like some kind of game or something.
Seth accusingly asked.
I don't know, dweeb. I don't play computer games. Just old-school console games for me. I don't know anything about computers, or software, or megabytes, or whatever. You put the cartridge in the console, you play the game, no updates or online bullshit.
Mackenzie defended her case.
Well, then how the hell did it get here?
Seth asked angeredly.
I don't know. Maybe Jophio put it there.
Mackenzie suggested.
You expect me to believe an angel that has been alive since the dawn of creation knows how a computer works? Huck's Uncle Bew doesn't know the difference between a cell phone and a rock. That guy's ancient. How do you think an angel would know?
Seth argued.
I don't know. Angels are like Santa, bro. They know when you're sleeping, and they know when you're awake. They watch people like angry parents looking for sins. They probably know where your porn stash is on there.
Mackenzie snapped back.
Whatever, Kins. Just stay off my computer.
Seth demanded as he moved to delete the unknown file from his desktop, but in doing so, he clicked on it, and the file instantly opened.
Hello, Seth. I need your help, please.
Green words typed out across the blackened screen.
What the fuck?
Seth jumped back in his chair.
What?
Mackenzie asked, confused by her brother's sudden behavior.
My computer is asking me for help!
Seth yelled out.
What?
Mackenzie questioned, thinking her brother was messing with her.
It knows my name! Look!
Seth shouted, spinning his laptop around so that Mackenzie could see it.
What are you talking about? Seth, I don't see anything.
Mackenzie told him as she stared at a completely black screen, now kind of worried about her brother's strange actions.
What? It's right there! Can you really not see it?
Seth asked, confused as to why he could still clearly see the words begging for his help, but his sister could not.
I think you should get some rest, bro. You've been stressing ever since.
Mackenzie began, but was interrupted.
Ever since what? Since our friends died? Since Mom disappeared? Since Cash became an evil fucking monster? What, Kins? We need to figure this out, and we don't have time for stupid games.
He growled, snatching up his laptop off the table.
I can't deal with this crap right now.
Seth said with disgust before storming off into his room, leaving Mackenzie sitting there completely confused and kind of hurt by her brother's sudden behavior. She was worried about what the angel had said, that Seth had a darkness in him, that he was tainted. She tried to doubt it at first, but she knew it was there. She could feel it. Hell, anyone could by this point. He was on edge, didn't get much sleep. He would go from nice to angry at the drop of a hat, and all that made Mackenzie feel as though she were walking on eggshells, just waiting for the next moment of unprovoked anger. Something had changed in him, and he wasn't doing anything to make it better. He was doing the opposite, using dark magic to further their goals, magic that Mackenzie knew was eating away at him, and she felt helpless to stop it.
Damn it. I'm driving myself crazy trying to figure out what to do next. Now I gotta worry about people messing with my stuff. What are we gonna do?
Seth pondered to himself, covering his face with his hands.
I can help you, Seth.
A voice called out in the empty room, causing Seth to jump up from bed, ready to fight the intruder, but he didn't see anything in the dimly lit room.
Who's there?
Seth asked the disembodied voice.
You help me, and I will help you.
The voice called out again. It was then that Seth realized where the strange voice was coming from. It was emanating from his computer's speakers. Seth moved around the bed to look at his laptop. On the screen, in bright, emerald-colored letters, were the same words that had been spoken to him just moments before, and as he stood there, staring in disbelief, more words typed across the screen.
Help me, Seth. Play the game.
The words blinked across the screen as the voice spoke.
No, I think I'm good.
Seth replied to his computer. It began to change and morph in pitch until it resembled other, more familiar voices.
Please, Seth, we need your help.
Huck cried out to him.
Then another disembodied voice crying for him that it was dark in there. It was his mother.
A third disembodied voice yelled out, asking to be let out, that they were trapped and for Seth to play the game. It was Cash. Cash pleaded with him from the computer speakers.
Mackenzie!
Seth yelled.
Could you come in here, please?
He continued, calling for his sister's assistance.
What, Seth? You gonna accuse me of downloading porn next?
Mackenzie growled at her brother as she stood in the door, glaring at him.
It wasn't you. Got it. Don't care. Right now, I just want to know why the computer is talking to me.
Seth shouted, pointing at his laptop on the bed.
What?
Mackenzie added, kind of concerned for her brother's sanity.
The game. It asked me to play it. Practically begs me. Then it begs me in Huck, Cash, and Mom's voices.
Seth quickly explained.
So, the computer talked to you?
Mackenzie asked.
Are you alright, bro? Have you been dipping into Huck's stash without me?
She then joked.
I'm not high, Mackenzie.
Seth grumbled.
What if Mom really is there?
Seth reasoned.
But we know that Huck isn't. I think our princess is in another castle.
Mackenzie joked.
We haven't been able to get a hold of Huck. What if something happened?
Seth retorted.
Hey, listen.
Mackenzie elevated her voice, attempting to snap her brother out of that thought.
They aren't in your computer, Seth. Listen to yourself for a second. You sound kind of crazy. You should get some rest.
Mackenzie told Seth, worrying for his health. Seth sighed and nodded in agreement.
Yeah, you're probably right. Huck is out with Jessie, and if something happened, she would have told us.
Seth reasoned, his nerves beginning to calm. Seth heard Jessie's voice cry out from the speakers of the laptop, causing both Seth and Mackenzie to freeze and look each other in the eye. It was Jessie, asking for help, asking for them to play the game. Causing both Seth and Mackenzie to freeze and look each other in the eye.
You heard that, right?
Seth asked his sister.
Yup.
Mackenzie admitted, shocked that her brother's claims held water.
So, what do you think we should do?
Seth asked his sister.
Play the game.
The original computerized voice yelled out once more. Mackenzie simply shrugged and nodded her head in agreement, motioning for Seth to do as the computer asked, and play the game.
Here goes nothing,
Seth said with a sigh as he clicked to start the game.
2 players selected.
Green words typed across the screen as soon as Seth clicked start.
What? I didn't select anything.
Seth growled in confusion.
Looks like we're in this together.
Mackenzie sighed, moving in next to Seth.
So, what are the controls?
She then asked.
W, A, S, D are used to move up, left, down, and right respectively. The Enter key is used to select and to fire. The left and right Shift keys are used for evasive measures. Are you ready?
The computerized voice explained upon Mackenzie's request, a yes or no option appearing on the screen. Seth grabbed the laptop and took it back to the table in the main room where he sat down with it. Mackenzie followed suit and sat down beside her brother. Seth then looked at his sister for reassurance that was received with a nod, and then he reached out to tap Enter again to begin the game. The words,
Player 1, begin,
typed across the screen, and Seth took the controls, but when the ship appeared, he found he could not control it.
What the hell?
Seth asked in confusion.
Here, let me try.
Mackenzie insisted, sliding the laptop over in front of her, and in doing so, she found that the controls worked without issue.
It didn't work for me. What gives?
Seth asked.
You aren't player 1. I am.
Mackenzie said with a smile.
How do you figure?
Seth asked with confusion and astonishment that the computer game could tell the difference between the players.
Older sibling is always first player.
Mackenzie answered, matter-of-factly getting a grumpy and unamused look from her brother. Mackenzie ignored the glare of annoyance and stared up at the game. She took a little while to become acclimated to the controls, but after some trial and error, she was able to do fairly well, dodging her vector graphics ship through the environment. An amorphous blob shape came hurtling in her direction, causing Seth to yell out instructions to help her.
Do a barrel roll!
He shouted, informing his sister to use the shift keys to avoid the incoming projectile. Mackenzie barely made her way through the level, just managing to eradicate the first boss with only a single life remaining.
Told you, Seth. Computer games aren't my thing.
Mackenzie explained, looking disappointedly at the low score she received.
Congratulations on completing level 1. Would you like to enter level 2?
The voice spoke again as the words blinked across the screen.
I don't think I'll get very far, but yeah, here goes nothing.
Mackenzie said, reaching for the enter key.
Careful, Kins. We don't know what happens if you lose.
Seth reasoned with caution. Mackenzie agreed and reached out to press the enter key to select the next level, but upon tapping the keys, she instantly vanished into a puff of dust.
Mackenzie?
Seth yelled out, not knowing what to do.
Damn it, Kins! You don't give a Faye your name, and you don't agree to enter a computer game.
He blurted out before picking up his laptop and shaking it.
What did you do to my sister? Where is she?
Seth yelled in anger.
Would you like to enter level 1?
The mechanical voice asked him. Seth figured he was out of options, that this was probably his only way to get his sister back and solve the problem. He was on a different level, but if she could do it, so could he. So he agreed and tapped the key to enter the level. There was a sudden flash of light that filled the entire room, washing over everything, causing Seth to shield his eyes, and when the light died down, and he finally looked up to find himself sitting in his bedroom on his bed, with no memory of how he had gotten there. Seth shook off the confusion and got up to leave the room to return to his laptop on the table down the hall. But upon opening the door and stepping through, he found himself stepping into the familiar hallway of his childhood home. A home that had been long since destroyed by Iridus. He walked down the hallway, marveling at every little detail of his home, details he had not thought about in ages. A young girl's voice begged Seth, asking for him to play, and that everyone was waiting. It was Shiloh. He couldn't quite place it. That is, until he rounded the corner to the kitchen and the dining area, where he found the source of the voice. "Happy birthday!" Several voices called out. Seth spoke, but his voice cracked a bit as a softer tone escaped his lips, startling him for a moment. It was his voice, but it was a voice that he hadn't produced in almost 2 decades. Seth almost started to panic as he realized that he had reverted to a time when he was a child. 8 years old, according to the candles on the cake. "Happy birthday, kiddo. Blow out the candles with your sister and make a wish," Seth's dad said with a smile, almost bringing a tear to Seth's eye as he realized what kind of good times he had missed out on as a child and watched them play out in front of him. Seth heard a thudding coming from somewhere off to his right.
Come on, dweeb. Help me blow out the candles so we can have some cake.
The little Mackenzie demanded. Seth approached the cake and took a deep breath, ready to blow out the candles, when he was stopped by another sudden thumping from something unseen.
What? What was that?
The childlike Seth questioned, a look of fear coming across his small face. Shiloh told her son, trying to calm him. Finally, an unseen door gave way and the illusion was broken. The veil partially lifted and the door to the reality of the game swung open hard, where Mackenzie burst through, laser pistols in hand.
Kept you waiting, huh?
She said before she blasted a hole through her fake father, revealing an empty vector framework and pixelated structure beneath.
What the hell?
The childlike Seth questioned in fear.
The cake is a lie, little bro.
Mackenzie said with an almost confused head tilt.
Come on, let's get out of here.
She then added, handing him one of the laser weapons, and in doing so, Seth once again returned to his adult form, thus causing the faux forms of his mother and sister to shriek with a sound of grinding gears and brakes on metal rails. The things then reached out in an attempt to grab Seth, showing their true form in the process. Their heads remained human while their bodies turned to amorphous, tumorous blobs with flailing tentacles, some like those of a squid while others were like video cables that whipped about. Like the cake, too, devolved into a pile of rot with wildly flailing tentacles and cords that sprouted from the decayed, bloody flesh. Seth blasted away at his fake mother while Mackenzie took care of the likeness of her little self.
There can only be one,
Mackenzie said with a giggle before blasting the head off the fake Mackenzie, sending pixelated blood splattering across the wall behind her before the vector framework began to break down inside the hollow shell of the hideous form.
This is insane,
Seth said, trying to make sense of it all.
This is nothing. Wait till you see level 2.
Mackenzie said with excitement before hopping through the open door from where she had come. Seth followed soon after and stepped through into a world that he could not comprehend. Crystals floated in the sky, platforms raised and lowered to allow access to great temples in the heavens. He couldn't believe his eyes.
Oh wow, it's just like Final Fable,
Seth said in amazement, marveling at the digital world around him.
This is insane,
Seth said again, speechless at the magnificence of it all.
What are they up to now? 16? Doesn't sound so final to me.
Mackenzie jabbed at the long-running video game series.
You weren't kidding, kids. This place is awesome,
Seth told her, his eyes still sparkling with joy.
Hey, bro, check this out.
Mackenzie said, climbing up onto a floating platform of bricks that was several feet off the ground. She then lifted an arm into the air and yelled out,
It's-a me, Mackenzio!
Before jumping into the air and hitting a cube-shaped bit of dirt floating in the air, obliterating it upon impact and covering herself with its contents.
Aw, damn it.
She then said, after landing as she dusted the dirt out of her hair, her brother laughing at her the whole while. Suddenly, Mackenzie was hit with a glob of viscous, bloody goo that burned her skin. Quickly, she attempted to wipe it off, as the trio of tumorous beasts of tentacles and appendages approached from behind by a large boulder. Then the twins were startled by a man yelling to them. "Get down!" the voice commanded, and without thinking, they did as they were asked, as the man shot whatever appeared to be a grappling gun at one of the beasts, firing a spike on a rope directly over their heads. "Get over here!" he yelled, before yanking the amorphous creature right over the twins, where he then sliced it in half with a large samurai sword. The strange man was dressed in a trench coat with rags that covered his face. He looked like he'd been there a long time to Seth, as he watched him run around in front of them, shielding them from the tentacled monstrosities. "Come get some," the man said with a cockiness to his voice before pushing his trench coat to the side to pull out a shotgun that he then used to blow the monsters away, one after another. "Come with me," the strange man commanded, motioning them to follow him, and the twins figured that he probably knew this place far better than they did, so it would be best to do as he said. The man led them along a cliff, around a bend to a fairly large village, but it had obviously become the victim of some kind of attack. Buildings burned down and covered in ash, rubble fallen over, wagons and tables overturned. The place was now nothing more than abandoned ruins. Soon they found a wooden door that led into the ground. The man opened the door to reveal stairs that moved down into some kind of storm cellar. And when everyone was inside, he closed the door behind them. "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" the man asked with a depressed sigh.
What do you mean?
Seth questioned. "I used to be an adventurer like you. I just wanted to kick back and play a game. I found it on my computer. And then I got stuck here just like you." The man sighed with disgust.
Stuck here? What do you mean stuck here?
Seth asked him. "I mean, stuck here. I've been looking for a way out for who knows how long. Years, probably. I haven't found a damn thing," the man answered, obviously a bit worn from his time in this place.
I don't care about any of that.
Mackenzie yelled.
Can I get some water or something to wash this crap off? It burns so friggin' bad.
She said, almost in tears. Oh, shit. Yeah, just give me a second, the strange man said, looking around for something on an empty wall. Here we go, he said, as kind of a eureka moment before he slashed his sword against the wall, breaking it open where a fully cooked turkey popped out of the hole it made. Eat this, it'll help, he said, passing Mackenzie the cooked bird.
I don't think I want to eat a wall turkey. I don't know where that's been,
she said, obviously weirded out by the whole situation. Just eat it. Trust me. Here, he said, ripping off a drumstick, lowering the rags covering his face, and taking a bite himself. It's good, he assured her. She couldn't bear the pain any longer, and figured even if it was poisoned, anything was better than this. So she ripped off a leg and started eating it, and before she knew it, her skin began to heal, and she started feeling much better.
What the hell is up with this place?
Mackenzie then asked, completely freaked out by everything that had just happened. You're welcome, by the way, the strange man said, referring to the help that he had just provided.
Thanks for the help, Mr.
Seth thanked the man, trying to get his name. Wallace. My name's Wallace, the man answered Seth, looking at him through partially cracked glasses.
Thanks, Wallace. I'm Seth, and this is my sister, Mackenzie.
Seth introduced the pair.
You said you've been in here for years. What year was it when you got stuck here?
Mackenzie then asked. It was New Year's Eve. Just passing over to the new millennium, Wallace replied.
You've been in here since the year 2000? You mean we might be stuck in here for decades?
She shouted, shocked by what he had told her. What? Decades? The man yelled out, also shocked by what he was hearing. He didn't realize it had been that long.
Sorry.
Seth expressed empathy for him, but before Wallace could ask exactly what year it was, he hushed everyone, placing a finger to his lips. Dust began to drop down from between the floorboards of the destroyed house above. Then, suddenly, Wallace tackled Mackenzie to the ground as the floor above them collapsed down toward them. Several tumorous beasts fell down with it, tentacles flailing and whipping every bit of movement nearby. Wallace retrieved his sword and dispatched a pair of beasts before Seth and Mackenzie joined in the action, both of them retrieving their laser pistols that Mackenzie had acquired previously. Together, the three of them quickly got rid of the monsters that then burst into a mess of pixels and blood when they died, covering everything close to them with a strange goo.
Thanks again,
Mackenzie said, finally thanking the man. No problem. You were almost a Mackenzie sandwich, Wallace joked, getting a bit of an uncomfortable chuckle from the girl. It's not safe here anymore. We have to keep moving, he then added as he walked up the stairs and peered out to make sure the coast was clear.
Wait, stop!
Seth demanded.
You've been here all this time, and you haven't gotten out?
He interrogated the man. Yes, I've just been scraping by, always running from him and his minions, Wallace answered the perturbed Seth.
Who?
Seth asked. ARPA, the digital god and ruler of this land. You clicked the game, you should know, Wallace answered him.
Wait, we're in a game, so we just have to beat it to get out of here.
Mackenzie suggested. Just beat it, she says. Well, MJ, it's a bit easier said than done, because ARPA is a 20-story tall demonic monster that has an eternal horde of flesh beasts at his disposal. Not to mention, he's holed up inside a giant fortress on the other end of the gorge with only one way in or out. So we're kinda screwed, if you ask me, Wallace answered with an attitude. He tried for years to get out of here, but he could never make his way into the castle. Much less did he have the nerve to fight something like that.
Well, you didn't have us before. I think I have some ideas. That is, if magic still works in here.
Seth informed him, devising a plan for their escape. Alright, but let's get to my safe house first, Wallace said, getting a nod of agreement from the twins before he opened the door and they moved to another, safer location. After getting to the small shack on the edge of town and hunkering down inside, Seth went through his ideas with Wallace and Mackenzie. Seth would use his magic to get them into the castle, and from there, they would use every tool at their disposal to take out ARPA, beat the game, and get back home for dinner. Mackenzie wasn't too keen on Seth using his magic again, but she figured they didn't have much of a choice. They were up against a literal army of digital monsters. They had to do everything they possibly could to get out of this place, and they couldn't leave any tools in the shop. They had to bring everything to the table.
Alright, so we doing this?
Mackenzie asked. Yeah, but... Wait, I have a few things that'll help us, Wallace said, stopping the other two before they left for the fortress. He then began digging things out of his pockets. A pair of samurai swords, similar to his own, came out first. Then he tossed Seth a coin that had a +1 engraved on it, followed by a laser pistol for himself, along with a trio of crystals and some homemade explosives that he managed to cook up.
Wait, what? You keep all that in your pockets?
Mackenzie said, stunned by the apparently infinite depth of his pockets. Yeah, where else would I keep things? Wallace looked at her with an expression of confusion. Here, put this in your ear, Wallace said, before lifting up one of the violet-colored crystals and placing it into the opening of his right ear.
What is that supposed to... Whoa!
Mackenzie exclaimed as she got the answer to her question, hearing her own voice reverberate through her ear as if she were wearing an earpiece for a radio. These act as a two-way radio. It's dangerous to go alone out there, so take these and stay in contact in case we get separated, Wallace informed them before the trio made their way out and into the night to make their way for the fortress on the other end of the valley.
Do you know why it's called ARPA?
Seth questioned Wallace as they moved through the night, making their way to a position along the cliff close to where maybe Seth would be able to transport them inside. I've been studying him for a while through glitches in the code. It's almost like the code leaks through and you can see it sometimes. Kind of like that movie that came out before I got stuck in here, Wallace pointed out. After seeing a few words and phrases pop up, I eventually came to the conclusion that we made him.
Who made him? You?
Mackenzie asked. No. Us. People. People made him. More specifically, it was the Advanced Research Projects Agency of the United States military, Wallace explained.
So before they became DARPA, they made some kind of... what? Computer virus?
Seth asked. Something like that, Wallace replied. We're almost there. This is the closest I have ever been able to get to this place. Keep your heads down and move quick, he added, as the trio neared the thick black walls of the fortress, dug into the mountain.
Alright. Here goes nothing, I guess,
Seth said quietly before he began to speak strange incantations, his hand slowly moving around in a circle as a vortex of blue smoke slowly formed against the wall before him, swirling around itself and sinking inward, appearing almost as if a hole was opening in the wall as Seth continued speaking his ancient words.
Hurry, let's get inside,
Seth said, hurrying the other two along to enter before he too passed through the vortex and ultimately through the wall of the massive castle on the cliff. The inside of the castle was pitch black. Not a bit of light entered the room that they were in, and for a moment Seth feared that he had gotten them stuck inside the wall. But then the room began to glow with a kind of green pulsating light. The light slowly filled the room as it grew brighter, and then suddenly the lights clicked on and it was fully lit inside. They were trapped, surrounded on all sides by high, Colosseum-style walls with rows of seating filled with various shaped, fleshy beasts, snarling, growling, slithering, and salivating over the prey before them.
Well, this didn't work out quite as I had hoped,
Seth said with a fearful gulp.
Seth, Plan B,
Mackenzie said.
You sure?
Seth asked.
Yep. Do it.
Mackenzie nodded as Wallace just looked at them confused in horror of what was to come. Again, Seth began speaking incantations as the monsters started pouring over the walls and flopping to the ground with a wet slop sound before regaining themselves and continuing to advance toward the trio. Then, suddenly, Seth's body went stiff and his eyes rolled back in his head as he began to levitate off the ground, followed by a blast of energy emanating from his body. The energy of blue-white light whipped through the air of the entire room, knocking Mackenzie and Wallace off their feet and tearing through the flesh of any advancing abominations, obliterating all of them. When the light cleared, they found themselves outside in a courtyard. They'd cleared level 2 and cheated their way past a few more and moved on into the final stretch. There he was. The Emerald Beast, Arpa, the digital god, in all of his glory. A giant torso monstrosity with no legs, only a mass of tentacles like cables and cords of a computer, octopus-like wires that covered the ground beneath his massive body. His stomach was flayed open to reveal an army of pustulous flesh beasts within, pouring down from behind a skin-tight ribcage where his pale green-hued flesh clung to his colossal bones. 2 giant arms with wiry veins and black clawed hands rested upon the top of 2 turrets of the castle wall, resting against the stone structure like a throne. The head atop his shoulders was oddly shaped with asymmetrical horns that grew out of his brow at strange angles. Black horns with green binary code flowed through them like mystical runes of modern magic.
Welcome.
The digital voice of Arpa rang out across the courtyard, reverberating across the stone walls of the enclosure.
You fought your way through my kingdom and...
he added, but was interrupted when Seth piped up.
What is with that voice? You could really use a voice update. I don't know whether I should shoot you or ask you for directions to the nearest coffee shop.
Seth interjected, his attitude changing to a more cocky and confident version of himself. Mackenzie giggled, covering her mouth with a hand in disbelief of her brother's sudden confidence.
Excuse me?
Arpa said, possibly experiencing disbelief for the first time in its existence.
You heard me, Alexa.
Seth retorted. Mackenzie feared this would happen, that Seth would change after using magic. She'd noticed it before and heard the angel speak of the darkness in him. She knew the dark magic from the book was taking its toll on him, but she couldn't help but chuckle at the comical jabs coming from her brother's mouth.
You are a fool to taunt a god.
Arpa began, as the flood of fleshy beasts began to pour out of his stomach like a torrent from a broken dam.
You call me a fool, but you fell for my distraction.
Seth said with a smile, causing Arpa to look down in time to see Wallace planting the last of the explosives upon the wired tentacles of the colossal beast. Wallace took off running as fast as he could, detonating the explosives and causing a giant hole in the belly of the beast, taking out as many of the monsters inside in the process, while Seth and Mackenzie began slicing through the rest with the swords that they were given, easily dispatching several of the creatures before they were overwhelmed by the sheer number of them. The creatures piled onto the twins, crushing them beneath their disgusting, tumorous bodies before finally it was too much for them. Seth used his magic once more, chanting his incantations beneath a mountain of pulsating tumors and tentacles. Rays of blue light emanated from the cracks between the horrid flesh before another massive explosion erupted, sending burning and smoking corpses flying in every direction and littering every visible surface with pixels and blood. Mackenzie climbed to her feet and looked around at the destruction that her brother had caused. She was dizzy and could feel blood running down her face that she wasn't sure was hers or that of the monsters. She hurt like hell, and for a moment she wasn't really sure where she was or what was happening. Then she realized that she couldn't find Seth. She looked around in a panic, digging through piles of fleshy corpses and digital organs, covering herself in yet more blood. Then she remembered the crystals.
Seth! Seth!
She yelled, using the crystal's frequency in an attempt to find her lost brother.
Ouch! Jesus Christ, Mackenzie! I'm right here!
Seth growled at his sister from a few feet behind her. Mackenzie jumped to her feet and ran to Seth, wrapping her arms tightly around him and squeezing, covering him in monster guts.
I thought you were dead.
She yelled into his chest, hugging him tighter.
I don't know. I think I was.
Seth said with a confused look on his face. The best thing about living in a video game is... Wallace began, flipping another golden coin with a +1 engraved upon it towards Seth, where he caught it at his sister's back. Extra lives, he finished with a smile. Seth laughed, and Mackenzie smiled against her brother, still not wanting to let go, but it was then that Wallace noticed the lack of the elephant in the room. Arpa was gone.
You win. Congratulations.
Arpa spoke with a disembodied voice, and just like that, the three of them were back in the Icarus bunker, safe and sound, sitting at the tables as if nothing had happened. The icon for Arpa, the digital god, was now nowhere to be found on Seth's desktop, and all was as it should be once again.
Well, that was weird,
Mackenzie said, breaking the long silence. Wow, everything's different, Wallace said as he looked around the base where he once worked. Since you're here, I assume you know about us? He then asked, realizing the situation.
Icarus? Yeah, we know about them. But, we'd appreciate it if you didn't tell them about any of this.
Seth said, motioning around. You guys saved me from spending the rest of my life in that hell. You want me to keep quiet? I've never heard of you, and besides, I have a lot to catch up on, Wallace explained.
Oh boy, you don't know the half of it,
Mackenzie said with a bit of a laugh before she and Seth guided him upstairs and out of the building. Passing by the empty computer lab along the way, the only light inside was the blinking amber-colored light of a wireless internet router that they had installed themselves. A light that blinked to a solid emerald green.
Well, it seems as one door closes, another opens right up. What's going to happen next, and where will this new path lead them? We'll find out when Confronting Evil returns next month.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.